Yeah. I was so stressful, I blotted it out. I've got to ask them.
Hello, welcome to my studio and welcome to another edition of Art Discussion with me, Adelaide Damoah. As you may or may not know, I'm actually an artist and I really enjoy probing the minds of other artists to find out what makes them tick and how they overcome the challenges that they face on a day-to-day basis in order to go ahead and achieve the goals and ambitions they have for their careers. Then what I like to do is to package that into video form and pass that information on to you to hopefully inspire you to continue going forward and reaching for your dreams. Hence this video series, Art Discussions. So today's interview is with a really nice and very accomplished lady by the name of Jane McAdam Freud. Now, Jane graduated in the 1980s with a degree in fine art from the Central School of Art in London. Quite soon after graduation, she was awarded the British Art Medal Scholarship in Rome. And when she came back to London, she went on to pursue further studies at the Royal College of Art studying sculpture. In 1991, she was honoured with the ancient honorary degree of the Freedom of the City of London. And she's been a member of the Royal Society of British Sculptors since 1997. Now, Jane's work is in many major national and international art collections. There are way too many to name here, but just to name a few, she has worked with the British Museum in London, the Victoria and Albert Museum in London, and the Brooklyn Museum in New York. If you'd like some more detailed information on Jane's achievements and background, please do click the link in the description bar below. There's lots of information there, including her bio and links to her website. But for now, let's have a listen to what Jane had to say. Can you tell me about your background, please?
Okay, so talking about my background, well, it was really eccentric. We lived in Paddington. I was born in Maida Vale, actually. And when I was 2, my father found us a place in Paddington, near his studio. And, you know, he lived basically and worked in the same space, so it was like a live-work space. But he was at ours all the time. He didn't live with us, and it was all very bizarre. And I always felt there was something wrong, you know, like something, there were no rules, no boundaries, no discipline. I was terrifying. I was anxious all the time, really, really anxious. And I think I tried to find meaning for myself. You know, I used to go to the local skip. We lived on Fernhead Road, and the skip, it wasn't really a skip, it was like outside a greengrocer's shop. They had old orange box lids, and I'd bring those in and paint on them. And I just loved finding things and painting on them. But they had to be objects, and it's really weird because it's what I do now. Yeah. I paint on objects and not on paper or canvas. I paint on canvas, but then I make it into an object. So it's all about the object. So that started really young, to try and make a meaning by bringing things together, objects together. And I think I really didn't think there was any other way of expressing yourself, because remember, both my parents were artists. So my mother, she did painting at St Martin's, and then she did fashion after that, and so she was always cutting up material, making interesting things and painting sometimes. Anyway, there were paints galore. Sometimes my father painted in our basement, so I thought it was a way of life somehow to make things, paint things, you know, it was just what you did. I thought everybody did it. So I think the interesting thing is the fact that I started so young to try and make sense of life, because it didn't make sense. I don't know what other people's childhoods are like, but I certainly felt that I had to invent a way of life. I had to invent meaning. I think art became a sort of religion for me, because I really needed something. I really wanted to believe in something. I believed in fairies and, you know, all those things, the Tooth Fairy and Father Christmas. And, you know, as those things fell away, they were substituted with art.
Yeah.
So that contained all the magic for me.
When did you know that you wanted to be an artist for your career?
I don't think people are artists, you know.
Yeah.
I think they just make art, and it's the product that speaks. So the product, I mean, if art is a product or an act of religion, I mean, it's that thing you make or do that is important. You're still a person that makes things or paints things, but I think the artist label is not for us to take. I think everyone can call themselves an artist, but I don't think everyone can make art. I think it's different. Everyone can learn to draw and learn the techniques, but not everyone has something to say.
Can you remember when you when you first started to actually make money from your work?
I mean, I can't, because it was so natural and normal. So just to explain, when I was like at Central, I was making those sort of commemorative medals. So, well, it was a competition, the RSA bursary competition, design and make a medal to commemorate Picasso's centenary. So the centenary of his birth. So he was born in 81, and it was like, no, it wasn't born in 81. I was there in 81. He was born in whenever. This was 1981, and it was a date on the commemoration, so 100 years before. 1881, he was born. Never been very good at maths. Yeah, so I made this, and the British Museum bought a copy. I was 19. I was like in the second year at Central, and they bought a copy, and it was like quite stressful because the department, the head of department and my tutor were like saying, you must charge an awful lot of money. This has never happened. And I mean, it has happened since that the museum have bought works, but it was like a first for them. And I was so stressed because I kept having to ask for more and more to the museum. They did pay it, what I asked, but I thought, well, this is so stressful. I'm not really into this selling. It's too stressful. So I didn't appreciate that I'd got a piece in the collection at like such a young age. I think, of course, they went on collecting. The prices went down. But I'd set a precedent that they weren't going to buy them for next to nothing, because the tutors said that it should be like that. And it's sort of drummed into me that don't give things away.
Yeah.
I've always put high prices on things, and I don't know if it made people value them more, but I mean, the V&A started collecting them. They've got loads of my drawings and sketches, even little sketches on tracing paper.
What would you say success in the art world means to you?
To me?
Yeah.
You know, when I was a really little girl of maybe 5, I was already really ambitious. And I used to pull the wishbone. I sort of started telling people, but I never really told anyone because I thought it might jinx it. I'm telling people now because I feel just that tiny, tiny little bit more confident, but only a little bit more. I'm still scared of jinxing it. And it was like, I'd pull the wishbones and say, I will have something in the Tate, Britain. You know, there wasn't Tate Modern Tate, but it was only the Tate. I will have something in the Tate. I will. I wish for it. I wish to be successful enough to have something in the Tate. And I think it's still my, to be collected by, I think it's turned into, not to have something in the collection, to have an exhibition there. I think because I have in the National Gallery of Greece and main art museums, maybe worldwide, I've got, like a lot of them, I've got maybe something, even if it's something little, or the DVD of a little film I made. A lot of art museums have got them, so it's not really to have something in the collection, although I'm still obsessed with the Tate for some reason. I love the Tate. Anyway, I think to have a show, maybe at the Tate Modern or the Serpentine, that I think would be that's what I'd like.
There's a perception that the art world, what it is patriarchal. It's a patriarchal world, run mostly by men. So a lot of the time women find it really difficult to get on because they're just not seeing themselves, they're not represented. And so I was wondering if you've come up against any obvious prejudice as a result of being female, and if you have, how are you overcoming?
I think in the sculpture world it's even more prevalent that there's a sort of macho contingent, let's say. And I have come across that. and I think about it quite a lot, and I use it like as material, you know what I mean, like as a concept in a way to play with. So I'd say like that because sculpture, but women's sculpture or women's sculptors, both those things, women aren't seen, women's sculpture's not seen as sculpture, it's seen as like women's art in a way, or women's sculpture, or rather than sculpture, because it's not bigger, not big, heavy, not massive, heavy, and like competing in the scale and the weights of maybe traditional sculptors. I mean, I found that with traditional sculptors, old school, because I remember I'm a fellow of the Royal Society of British, or the Royal British Sculpture Society, and I sort of stopped going because I really saw that that there was this macho, it's subtle, like all these things are very subtle. But there was a sort of macho mentality amongst some, not all, because most are adorable and fantastic, but some of them, and enough of them to make me feel uncomfortable, were macho about sculpture. And I think it's more about, it doesn't matter about the size and weight, it's really got nothing to do with anything. That it's more about the meaning, it's that you can use any materials. It's about how the work conveys the meaning to the public and the engagement, how much it engages.
What would you say has been your biggest challenge to date? And how have you
Challenge?
Yeah.
Oh dear. Everything's a challenge. Everything. This interview is a challenge. It's my biggest challenge. I'm terrified. I want to do everything so very well, and I was all scared. I'm not going to quite, cut the mustard. I'm terrified. Yeah. So everything. I can't say there's a big everything new, everything that comes along is a challenge. Everything. I overly prepare for everything. I try and reinvent a way of doing it even to make sure it goes successfully, as you've experienced with this industry. So yeah, no, I can't say anything's easy. Yeah.
Okay, so what would you say has been your biggest success to date? And then how did you get it? How did you achieve it?
Last thing I did is my biggest success. I'm so thrilled to be able to say that. My last solo show was the best I've ever had in the biggest art museum, all for me, the whole museum, the size of, say, bigger than the Serpentine, much bigger. Say the Royal Academy, between the Royal Academy and the Tate Modern, so it was upstairs, it wasn't on so many floors, so more the Royal Academy, that size.
Where was that? I didn't read
14 rooms, yeah, it's on my website. It's like when you click the first one, where it says solo shows, there's drop down pictures, and the one at the top, it's called the Wu Yang Contemporary Art Museum in South Korea. They contacted me and said, can we give you a retrospective? I said, well, I'd like to do new works for it. So they said, all right, a semi-retrospective, so you can do the new works. So I made loads of new installations, and then I sent all my work, which was terrifying because one of the installations involved like 62 of my sketchbooks, and I had to let go of those 62 sketchbooks. And I have more than that, but I went up to a certain date. And it was like I wanted my studio to merge with Sigmund Freud's study. So put the objects there, like the sofa and the table where he wrote at the desk, and the plinths that he had his sculptures on, and all the cabinets where he had all his thousands of antiquities. Take those things out, and his bookcase, put my sketches in the bookcase, put my works on the table instead of the antiquities, my small, like those ones I pups pick up pieces. And so the sketchbooks went for that reason. So we recreated a merging of Freud's study with my objects.
That is, wow. And
I had to pinch. I was walking around Adelaide. Not many things. Nothing has ever made me feel like this, actually. Although I nearly had that feeling in St. Louis, Missouri, when I had a solo show there. But it was with another artist. My space was smaller. His was a big. But I felt like it there, and I feel like it like 1,000 times more walking around. I felt like I wasn't even in my own skin. I felt like I was looking down on myself, like I was on film. I was watching a film of me, even though I was in my own body. I can't tell you how it felt. Oh. It was magical. It was surreal. I was like flying. I compare it to flying. I felt like I was doing in a space, a person, a being that was so unfamiliar. so unfamiliar. And there were technicians running around everywhere, like on cranes and what do you want this, there, and all for me. But then I saw my whole life in front of me, because it was a retrospective and it went back to 1981, that Picasso medal, it went back to that. I saw my whole life there and not valued in that way.
If you could go back to 1981, when you first graduated, what advice would you give to yourself?
I'd say to myself, don't worry, Jane, it will all be okay. Please don't be so anxious. Work hard, work hard, but don't get so anxious. Be happy, it will be okay.
If you were going to give advice to a complete stranger who's just graduating now, what would you say?
I'd say risk all. I mean, you might lose something in the risk, but what you'll gain will be so much more useful, because when you risk, it takes courage and conviction. And I think in the art game, you've got to be so resilient, and you need courage and conviction, and you need it more than anything. You have to be so brave. And so I think if you start risking and developing that sort of belief in yourself, I think, I'm going to do this because this is the right way, whether somebody wants it to be like this or whether I'll get ostracised, I know it's right, and you really stick to it, then you'll carry on and you'll build the sort of character you need to continue. And I think the other thing is, don't be in a hurry. Don't be in a hurry, it's pointless. Don't judge yourself against others, because it won't be relevant in the long term. Art's judged in hindsight. Of course we know that what's important now won't be important when it's looked at from a distance, so in the space of time. So basically in our lifetimes we might even get recognition, but it might all get junked after. So don't even think about that. It's not important. What's important is that the quality of the work and the concepts remain really powerful, really strong, and that when it's looked at with a distance of time, it will stand up against all the other work that has been done at that time, where those artists didn't even get a look in. So I said, don't be in a hurry.
Hello, welcome back. Thanks very much for joining me for that edition of Art Discussions with Jane McAdam Freud. Now, are you an artist who's seeking inspiration, or are you a collector, or somebody else who's just very interested in the lives and careers of artists? If you are, and you have any burning questions that you'd like me to ask in my next interview, please do let me know in the comments section below. In the meantime, please do subscribe to the channel, because by subscribing you get to keep up to date with the latest interviews like this one, and you just never know where I'm going to end up. Until next time, take care. Bye.